I forgot my gavel tonight, so we will continue on. It is 7 p.m. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Suffolk Board of Finance. Tonight is Tuesday, September 12th, 2017. Let us start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have a forum tonight. On our agenda, public comments. Are there any public comments?
Hi, Bill Hillman, 86 Walnut Hill Road. I've had conversations privately with a number of folks on the board and other people, and last I'd heard the potential state lack of aid is somewhere in the vicinity of $3.6 to $4 million. It's a moving target. We all don't know what's going to happen yet. But I would certainly, as an individual taxpayer, suggest a balanced approach in response to that might start with expense freeze, not filling any unfilled positions, taking account for the fact that new positions, such as any part-time positions that this board might not have realized were created, but also if there is a hit, my personal recommendation would be a three-legged stool approach. $1 million minimum out of the fund balance is probably an amount which is not going to destroy our AAA rating. A 1 mil rate increase would hit the typical homeowner between $220 and $250 for the year. I think if you have a supplemental tax bill that hits people for $800 or $1,000, some of the folks who are here in the room to speak later about the school renovation project would bump into a serious resistance at any kind of referendum if people get hit with that kind of an increase. Unfortunately, a balanced approach means that there's going to be furloughs and layoffs, both on the town side and the school side. These are possibly unavoidable given all things considered. There's, really no great solution. One might hope that the legislature would try another approach, such as the ones that have been offered by the minority party in the state legislature, but my assessment is it's likely that something will be pushed through by one side. It will be voted on strictly according to party lines. Whether or not we get a sales tax increase to offset some of these, that approach fails to address the fundamental issue of state pensions and a growing liability that may solve a problem this year, but only kicks the problem down the road a couple of years. That liability blossoming from where it is now to as much as 7, 8, or 9 billion in just a few years. So, there's only so much this board can do. Unfortunately, I think the conservative and fiscally responsible approach is to look at all things, all costs, all expense, and share the burden, including drawing from the town fund. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Thank you very much. Any other public comments?
Can I say one thing? Bill, I appreciate your comments. The only thing is when you draw from the fund balance, you're kicking the can down the road to next year. So if you take
Know what the state legislature and the governor is going to do this year. Next year, we hope to have a different governor. How the budget's going to play out next year is probably more of a crapshoot than this year. My hope is that if we solve the immediate problem right now, it might be kicking it down the road if the legislature does the same junk next year. But next year, if you buffered people a little bit this year, they're not going to have to be the $500 or $1,000 supplemental bill. You're essentially stretching it out over a couple.
I'm not suggesting the supplemental.
I'm just saying the people need to have some level of buffer. I appreciate that it's kicking something down the road. We just don't know which way that road's going to go yet. That's just my opinion.
Well, it's all speculation at this point, but it's good to plan ahead and get some suggestions. All right, do we have any correspondence, Dion?
No.
Okay. We, in front of us, have copies of the minutes of the regular meeting, which was held on August 8, 2017. Can I have a motion to approve these?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes, August 8th, as written.
Do I have a second? Second. All right. Any discussion on the minutes of the meeting? This is our regular meeting of August 8th. Hearing none? All those in favor of accepting these minutes, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So moved. Then we have in front of you the minutes of the special meeting which was held Tuesday, August 22nd. Do I have a motion on those?
Motion to accept.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion on the notes of the minutes rather from the special meeting? Hearing none? All those in favor of accepting the special meeting minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. We are going to now move on to our comptroller's report, part of which you have in front of you, and I will turn this over to our comptroller, Mr. Bob Siblak.
Yes, I left in front of you the summary of expenses and revenue for the first 2 months of the year. Kind of benign, there's not much going on. The only account that might indicate an issue, and it's not, is the fire marshal's office. If you go to what page is that, 7, you'll see that it's there's an account that's over by $8,927. There was $27,000 in payments to the volunteer firemen for the tax abatement program. That happens every year at this time of the year. So other than that, there's everything is in line. I mean, it's just a 2-month report at this point, you know, not much to talk about really when it comes down to it.
I have a question. Why does the tax abatement come out of the fire marshal's office?
It's the way it's paid through the system, and then we have to journalize it out afterwards.
So that's just an accounting.
Yep. We're still in the midst of the annual audit. The accounting firm will be coming back towards the end of September, and we'll be on track for probably the annual report to be printed in December. Other than that, that's pretty much, I'll bring up what we discussed this morning at the staff conference along the lines of Mr. Hillman. The first selectman, Mr. Knickerbocker, had made a request to all department heads to have a freeze at this point, a spending freeze. So we're in that mode right now, and we're looking at every option that we could possibly work on, depending on what the governor and the General Assembly happens to throw on put on our plate.
What do you mean by spending freeze?
Everything that's
Elaborate
not,
on that?
what's that?
What is spending freeze?
It means anything that is discretionary spending, even if it's been approved through the budget process. So we're looking at, every project. Obviously, essential things can't stop, you know, paying police, paying staff that are currently employed. You can't pull that off the table. There may have to be furloughs. There may have to be, you know, cutbacks of that nature at some point. But we have a tiered set of possible ways to cut, starting with projects and then going into personnel. So it's like you start out bad, but not too bad, and then it gets worse and worse depending on what the level of cut is from the state, if that happens.
So you would cut projects before personnel?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mr. Chair?
Do you have Any questions? Brian?
Does the freeze include, or you have a hiring freeze too, or no?
We have 2 positions in the highway department, and the problem with that is, there are 2 drivers for the winter time with the snow plowing. And we're looking to see if we can work our way around that at this point. If we can freeze at least one, maybe we can do at least one. But they're down 2 routes right now, and that's a safety issue in the winter.
Yeah.
There's the assessor's office too, there's a job posting, isn't there?
Yes, there is.
Right, so that's 3. Okay.
You know, here's why I think we should defer this, because I didn't come prepared to give you a full report on this, but just to give you a general idea, we're trying not to cut off our nose to spite our face. As the comptroller said, the 2 highway positions are pretty critical. I mean, we have to get people trained so that they're ready for snowplows before winter sets in. If we can get by with one for now, this is probably one level below public safety personnel like police officers. Being able to clear the roads in the event of a heavy snowfall is pretty important. With the assessor's office, now some of you were not on this board at the time. I know that Gary and Bill were on the board. It took years to get previous boards of finance to approve taking that position from a part-time position to a full-time, so that we could hire a person who is either a certified assessor or training to be one, to actually be an asset to that office. But let me finish.
Let him finish.
The issue was when that position was finally moved to full-time, the increase in revenue that office produced for the town was $300,000 in the first year, and it's only gone up since then. If you understaff that office, you reduce the revenue coming in, because 2 people in that office cannot handle the load. That was a proven.
I just want you to realize that I was simply asking for confirmation of the number of.
Yeah, right. The number of.
I wasn't qualifying it in any way.
Okay,
I was
okay.
asking how many.
Okay.
But since you went there, I remember very vividly the part-time, to full-time in the assessor's office, and my recollection is that person was part-time, but they were paid full-time hours.
No.
And then it was presented in the budget.
No,
Okay.
no, that was not true. There was, okay, you're going back 6-7 years, and no, that wasn't true.
You said
Yeah.
it was 6 or 7, you said it was years ago,
Yeah.
7 years ago.
Yeah.
That's what I'm referring to, so.
All right, let us move on, Bob.
There's
Any
one other item. I wanted to pass it off right now to Terry Yansky from the Board of Ed, and she just wanted to speak about the unexpended funds account for this past year.
All right, I have one question for you, Bob. The senior center bus that we approved, what's the status of that?
We don't, until the state has a budget, we're probably not going to get the van.
Oh, because that was part of their money, correct?
I just checked on that. I believe it's on order, and
It's on, yeah, but is it coming, when's it coming in?
any day. We're expecting here. I'll get back to you on that. I think that was paid for previously out of a different budget, and that we expect it sometime in the next couple of weeks. But I'll
Okay.
find out.
All right, very good. Any other questions on other things that are still in the process from last capital non-recurring, the capital project?
Okay, I'm gonna go over this in a moment, but I'm gonna have Dr. Carver first, if you would focus on, we've made a lot of changes regarding the
Just to
budget,
follow
so
up with,
just so that you know what we've been doing.
with what Bob and Matt have said also, we have also held back on a number of positions for hiring. We have 2 administrative positions, we have probably 5 or 6 teaching positions, 3 paraprofessional positions, 3 custodian positions, a health coordinator, and we've also instituted a spending freeze. So for any
And salaries were
Correct.
down about $700,000
correct.
currently, that we have not filled.
Just so you know, in anticipation, because we didn't know what was going to happen. And it's causing a lot of stress on the system, as Matt said. We're doing multiple jobs, but we're trying to power through until the state that does settle the budget. But on our side, also, we've done a tremendous cutback on both personnel and staff and supplies.
And explain about the, all non-essential
All
purchase orders
non-essential.
are not going
Professional
through.
learning,
Right.
none of that's going
Conferences,
through
things like
at this point.
And then also, we can explain about the change, we moved everyone to the Connecticut Partnership Plan.
Yes, so as a result of the state givebacks with the health insurance, we actually got benefits from that. So we are seeing savings as the state is from the health insurances. So that also can help mitigate some of the issues should they come.
So with moving all of our staff to the
Connecticut.
revised changes in the plan, in this year, we will save another $400,000.
Just on the insurance.
Just on the insurance. Because of the state givebacks with a partnership plan.
And I'm sure that, I know the town probably has a little bit of savings too, because you have some
We have a
folks-
lot more employees.
We have everybody on the partnership.
So we are trying to do everything we can on our side to be efficient, be frugal, and cut back, just not knowing what's happening.
Dr. Keller, I just want to make sure I had some numbers right. So you're saying $700,000 on hiring freeze,
Correct.
Right.
On salaries, correct.
salaries, and then $400 in insurance. So
Correct.
1.1 million is kind of what you've identified, and
And it's much, much smaller, but spending cuts.
You could probably add another 100,000 there, and so I would say we're at least at 1.2. But, the numbers
telling
bouncing
you.
around were $8 million,
Correct. We are
and which
feeling
is,
on our side. I mean, I'm doing the job with myself and our Director of Instructional Technology. I mean, it's not easy on our side.
Does anyone else have any questions on what they have said? I have a question on the paperwork. Does anybody else have any questions before I ask mine?
well, I'd like to take you through it. So,
Okay, very good. That will
you know,
answer my question.
We closed the year end, the audit, it's not audited, but we filed our annual ED-001, which is due September 1st. And we continue to just pay off some bills that are still floating in slowly, but the encumbrances are way down. So we had final approval of transfers with the Board of Ed, and in order to file that ED-001. So I just wanted you to know, because usually you ask for an overview of our transfers during the year. So during the year, we did move around about 1.47% of our budget. A lot of that is within special ed. It's just to provide the services in a different manner than the way we had budgeted. So we year after year have been doing more in-house with our students instead of outplacements. And so the cost, we just shift the cost from tuitions over to the in-house expenditures that we have. But in the long run, that does save us some money. And we always feel that children are best educated the closer to home that we're able to educate them. We did have a lot of HVAC repairs. Exciting news for us is in technology. Anytime we did have some extra funding, we shifted it, and we are now 1-to-1 grades 3 through 12 in our school system. So every child, grades 3 through 12, has a Chromebook. But most of them, some, at the older grades, they go home with them, but at the younger grades, they're housed in the classrooms overnight. So we're trying to move more and more away from paper and lugging around those big textbooks and that kind of thing. But technology is here, and so it's here with the kids too. And at the end of the year, we did have $308,000 remaining, and we recommended to the Board of Ed to return almost $70,000 to the general fund and to put $238,000 into the unexpended funds account. By what we were spending the money on in the unexpended funds account, which was mainly the match for the E-rate funds, which is a 50-50 match with the federal government. And also, that we paid for the work on the turf field by Malone and McBroom. And then putting that deposit back in, we will have that account sitting right around the equivalent of 1% of our budget. So we know that the auditors always ask that you also make a motion to approve that deposit to the 1% account. Questions?
And obviously, I'm not an accountant, but Could any of this money be set aside in case we have, like, worst case scenario where we lose?
When we developed that account, it was earmarked for emergencies and opportunities. So I would think that emergencies would apply.
So if we put it in there, you could say, let's say 100,000 and it's offset.
We usually would talk to you, we usually tell you.
No, I understand you're gonna talk, guys, I
But
just.
the thing is, you know, a lot of times when you cut numbers in a budget, you stretch a little bit, and then what actually happens might not need it. But this would be at least a place to go at the end of the year. So if I stretched a little bit with my number of what I thought we would have in health savings, and at the end of the year, I really didn't have all the, I was 50,000 short, and I had nowhere else to go, at least we would have an emergency place to turn. Or we could identify it for something. But it's there for emergencies and opportunities. I know that we have been really struggling with some of our HVAC units, and I would tell you if I have to turn there for any of those major repairs on those, that would be what I would consider an emergency. And especially if you've tightened everything else and really don't have other places to go.
Any other questions? I see that your new balance is down at the bottom.
And that's an estimate because I have to finish paying off the bills, but it would be right around 1% of our budget. And as you know, we can go as high as 2%. We can't put more than 1% in a given year, but over time, we've reached the 1% mark. And I'm very comfortable with that, especially with the situations we're facing.
And that happened in the course of 3 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's been 3 years.
3 or 4. I think 4. It's my 4th year.
But we
It's
do
been 4 years?
need, we would need you to approve that. So I'd put the motion there, and as Bob knows, the auditors require that we have you also approve that.
Should we do that tonight?
Sure.
So, Bob, why don't you give us that exact motion? That would be the
It's
action
right there.
requested.
It's right there. The Board of Finance moves to deposit $238,641 into the unexpended funds account as recommended and approved by the Board of Education.
Okay. Would somebody like to make that motion on our behalf?
I'd like to make that motion.
All right, any discussion on the motion of moving the $238,641 into unexpended funds account for the Board of Ed? Any other questions or comments?
I wouldn't comment.
Yes.
I really, as you know, am a fan of the Board of Ed having this fund available, and I think you're really doing it in a very responsible manner, and I really appreciate it.
I think we all agree with that. Worked out well. We were a little skeptical at first, but it seems to have worked out very well, and we appreciate that. All right.
This was really a partnership kind of an arrangement when we first went into this 4 years ago, and it's worked well. It's an obligation we have to come forward, and it's an obligation that you have to reimburse. So it's working good.
All right, we have a motion on the floor to transfer $238,641. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So moved. Thank you. Does that conclude your portion?
Yes, it does.
All right, and thank you to the Board of Education. All right, the next item on our agenda is consideration for the Board of Selectmen, the Rockwell and Johnson School Project. Who will present that?
I will.
All right,
Okay, Mr. Chairman.
Dr. Carver, our superintendent of schools.
And I have with us our friends from Perkin and Eastman, Tina and Joe, and Bruce from ONG, so if there's any questions, they'll certainly be available. So I thought we could present, because when we left the meeting last time, I remember we had a bunch of tasks to come back to the Board of Finance with. You asked us to give a summary of our meeting with the State Department of Office of School Construction. And I did send an email probably the next day. Did you all receive it? Okay, good. So I did want to give you a follow-up to that. We also, you also wanted some information about the impact of the debt load, so we have that information for you also. And I think the last thing that we had is to talk a little bit more about that resolution. And I want to reiterate something that actually Mr. Hillman said. You know, as I said last time, you know, I'm just as concerned with the budget as I think all of you. And so but we are in a time where we can maximize the reimbursement for Bethel in terms of the school construction, because it's not going to get better long term. And I think that as we go through the presentation tonight and talk about the resolution, because I think we talked about the timeline and it has to move forward if we want to have an October referendum, just because of the charter and the dates associated with the charter. But I think we have an out if the floor is to kind of drop below us and we don't get the funding that we're expecting. So we're going to kind of talk through that, but I want to start with the visit from the Office of School Construction. As I said in my email, we had a really, I think, productive conversation. I think they continue to be very supportive of the Bethel projects. And I think our Mike Perkins and Eastman friend will tell you that they really have changed their whole process, and they're really vetting projects in a way that they haven't vetted them before. When we left the meeting, they asked us, as I said in my email to all of you, to go back, and we had indicated, even when we showed you the designs of the project, that Rockwell was going to be an issue with the state because of the addition, the kindergarten addition that we had, and what they called space standards allotments, or the amount of square footage they allow per child. And we knew that was going to be an issue going up there. So we went up there and we had quite a lengthy conversation about it. We left that meeting and they essentially said to us, look, go back and look at your project. Is there a way you can accomplish the goals of your educational program and stay within the envelope of the building so that we don't have to add the addition on? So we did. We went back and we looked at what that might look like. So I'm going to pass out to you some revised designs and revised cost estimates because let me pass it this way. Just so you know, the alternative layout is the new layout. The other side is the old layout, so if you want to compare one to the other, you have all of the information there. But essentially what we did, and we had to give up things. We had to give up programmatic issues to be able to accomplish this task. And essentially what you're going to see, for the most part, is those 2 kindergarten classrooms that were additions, the bump out spaces, were incorporated into the main floor of the building. And the art room got moved to the 2nd floor where the math suite is currently. We had to give up stuff to do that. We had to give up some collaborative spaces. We had to give up our STEM, the library became slightly smaller. We had to give up our maker space and our STEM space within our library. As I said in my email, we're working with Tommy Galliford around some of the issues with access to the 2nd floor. I think I told you before, children's classrooms in kindergarten and 1st grade cannot be on the 2nd floor. They can go there for certain things, but there has to be a dedicated stairwell for it, and that's fire code. But we've met with Tommy Galliford. We think we're in a better place. The good news in all this is it actually lowered the cost estimates for the projects. So the total cost, and I'm going to pass this out to you, on Rockwell went down, Terry, how much?
About $2.4 million.
And that was mainly for the construction of the additions. So in making these changes, I think there's 2, do you want a copy? Oh, you please, if you want a copy. So I think there's a couple of good things. Obviously, it was good that the cost went down on the projects. But I also think, although we did have to give up some things educationally, I still think that we're going to meet the programmatic needs of the program. So when you look at the total cost and the estimation, I think by making these changes, I'm fairly confident, and we have a follow-up meeting this Thursday with the Office of School Construction, that we are gonna be on the priority list for both projects. And they felt like, I think what we talked about before, that we are coming in well-prepared, our buildings are aged, they're well-maintained, but they're aged, and we know that there's a need there, and we don't have the declining enrollment. So I don't think there's any issues with us getting on the priority list, so I think we're in much better shape. Do you want to add anything?
No.
Questions about the new design or the cost estimates?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but this goes back to the fact that the state has not changed their
Yes.
space per
Correct.
student since 19 what?
I think it's 35 years ago that those standards were set.
But they've mandated many more programs.
Okay.
Beyond those
Right.
spaces.
Because they're two different groups. That's the
Yeah.
only way they operate.
Correct. They haven't changed it in the last 35 years, and so they are very antiquated. But I definitely think that it's doable within the context of this, and we still get what we need. So you might be asking, well, can they do that for Johnson? The answer is really different for Johnson. Johnson, the space standards for Johnson, I think you might remember, were at 94%.
Right.
So that's tight anyways.
So we're not that far.
We're not that far away from it. And whereas Rockwell had a more significant issue, just given the layout and the ages in the school. So you'll see revised estimates broken out both by the total cost of the project and then the impact to the town of Bethel, which I believe is 42, right, Carrie? It's 42 million.
Yes, and remember, that's before they grant any space waivers and other things. But at this point, that's the current estimate. So, you know, it was like 45.7 was the cost to the town that we showed you last time. Now we're at 42.2, but you know, we're hopeful that more of the ineligibles will be eligible, and even if they decide to waive it at the DAS level, at the commissioner level, after more discussions with them,
45,705.
or down the road through non-withstanding language, et cetera, more of this will become eligible and the cost to that.
What would that, if in an ideal world?
In an ideal world, the cost
the
of
waivers
Bethel
all
will
went
drop
through.
down to like, well, previously it was 40, so now it would go down, I'd say, to 39 or even 38. Yeah.
And what's the timing of
So
that determination?
The timing is if we need to have a referendum a past referendum by November 15th, and that's the state's deadline. And I think because of the charter and backing up from the public meeting, which I'm hoping we can set tonight, if we don't do it now, then I think we're out of the window. Because I don't think, and Matt, am I wrong? I don't think they can get the people that do the elections can't get it.
Yeah, they
that
can't,
quickly.
right. The next available window would be November 28th, and that's past your deadline.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that.
Yeah.
That, it doesn't happen right, it happens over time, it's a process.
Yes.
It happens during further discussions and reviews with the state, with DAS, and then the process is first to get on the priority list. Then to continue on with the reviews of the designs and the cost estimates by the state, and then eventually to hopefully get the waiver at the DAS level, and if not there, go separately to the legislators to enact notwithstanding language.
And in our best judgment, given history and experience, what's the timing of that?
State approval?
Or this whole kind of clarity around what's eligible, the waiver and that.
I can answer that. That's actually an ongoing process.
Yeah.
The actual final grant amount is not determined until after the project is audited. Up until that point, there are estimates, just like what's in front of you is an estimate. And as we go further down the line, that estimate gets tighter and tighter and tighter until the final audit is done. And then you'll know exactly to the penny how much you're getting from the state. But keep in mind that it's a paid as you go. So you're not waiting to the very end of the project to receive those grants, that you'll be getting them periodically as the project progresses.
But each designated grant waiver will be paid at a certain time, right?
When you
Yeah.
file.
Yeah, when you file it. So it used to be that towns would get their money at the very end of the project. Now, towns get their money as the project proceeds after the legislature approves the project.
But the maximum is about 2 million, right?
No,
On the waivers?
no.
No, oh, for the waiver,
Right.
the additional waiver,
Could be
could be
about,
about that.
Okay,
could be
good.
about 2.
Yeah.
That answers the question, though.
I'm not sure I did.
I wanna make sure that Bob is clear on that.
Are you clear about with that?
I'm clear, I think, on what you just described as the process, what I'm still working through is what does that expose the town to? If you do a practical matter, it exposes the town to something at the very end of the project where what is finally approved is less than what we have in bond revenue.
Well, what we've given you here is the worst case. We have not factored in, those additional
Savings.
spaces.
Right, this is a
This is the worst case.
This is the
conservative,
worst case.
this is a conservative approach.
Probably
and
should ask
estimate.
that question.
All right, Cynthia first, please.
So eligible costs.
Yes.
Are there any things that you can say that you know are not eligible costs?
Yes.
Bruce?
Bruce, you want-
Well, yeah, anything off-site is not eligible. Right now, the contingencies, like the owner's contingency, because it's not allocated to anything, because it's gonna be a future change orders or so forth, that's ineligible until proven eligible. Okay. As for the CM contingency, we assumed 50% of that. And to tell you the truth, if we don't use it, obviously, there's nothing there.
There's nothing to
But
bond.
I think you want more concrete.
So if you take a contingency, like a hazardous materials contingency, when it's called a contingency, it's not eligible. But if you end up then using the money to actually do abatement, those items then are eligible.
But here's where I'm having trouble, is because let's say if it's, is it about 35% reimbursed? Okay, so
Well,
let's say,
Well, the
I'm just gonna have a number.
It's 45% of the eligible
Eligible,
cost.
okay,
Eligible cost.
eligible costs, right.
Right.
So let's say that you have the whole number, and the eligible costs went up to be quite less. Then it's only 45% of that chunk, right?
Correct, and
Right.
that's why we hired ONG, because
And that's why this is a
ONG did an
conservative
analysis of, and
approach.
from all the schools they've worked on,
What's eligible,
what's
not.
eligible and what
What's
would
not.
not be eligible.
But to your point, it isn't 45% overall.
Right,
It's 45% of eligible costs.
Honestly, I think that will be confusing to the electorate, the people.
Well,
I think
that's
gonna be
always
confusing.
been, I mean, that's always been the case.
I'm sure it has, I'm just saying, especially now, I think people are gonna, antennas, they're gonna hear it differently. And I also, my only other question is that, they're meeting on Thursday?
Yes.
Why are we, I mean, we could be doing this Thursday
Well,
night,
I had
maybe a
that same-
special.
And the same conversation with Terry. And the reason is, we knew that we probably couldn't get you all together by changing the date. And I think if we don't do this meeting by Friday, when we counted backwards from a potential referendum date, with the amount of time that you need for posting, the public
notice.
meeting.
Absolutely, that's what
Yeah.
I'm thinking, Thursday night, only because I don't know how I'm gonna feel comfortable making a decision when
Well,
it's all in flux.
I
and
totally hear you.
know what I'm saying?
And I think that's why we worded the resolution.
Yes.
Right.
So
I
that
understand.
you can, if we come back in a week and the sky has fallen, I think I said this before, I don't want to be in that situation. So we need to revisit that. So I think we have it, but if we don't move it forward, then it's just dead for another year. And then the potentially getting the same reimbursement rates.
Thursday
Escalation.
is
It's
the
only the
next
first.
in a series
Oh, I thought
of.
something magical.
No, it's
no,
there's
there's
no
no-
magic wand
no.
waiting for Thursday.
Now,
No, we-
if it's not done by October 1st, then
Yeah,
it's
All
all
bets are
over.
on.
It's all over. It's
I
all
know.
over, in my opinion.
and there is no way that this could be deferred in a way, you know, how you, defer your enrollment in college, you know, this, they can't.
I don't
defer
think
you.
so.
Well, that would be an interesting question,
Well, I think we looked at it, right, Martin?
didn't we?
About what, defer?
Well, if we push it off a month, then because remember, we have the state deadline of November 15th.
There's nothing
Yes.
done.
We have to, it has to be done by November 15th, or we can't get on the priority list.
Well, I'm thinking of asking something different. Like, let's say if the timeframe, so you have to have a certain date of the project before you can get approved to put on the list.
November 15th.
And that's not, shiftable, that project.
That's a
All
hard
right.
number.
That is the question.
Yes.
I think Mr. Trojan.
I just have a
Yes, Brian.
Captain.
really quick. I'm assuming that the number that you came up with is just based on your experience, that that's most likely, worst case, everything you put in is definitely, you know, acceptable, reimbursable at that point.
Right.
Based on your experience and what you know the state's gonna allow.
Correct.
So we should be comfortable that unless some unforeseen issue comes up when you're digging or the pavement or whatever you do goes south, that should be a pretty solid number worst case.
Yes, there are allowances for things exactly
Right, no, I
what you
understand.
described.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
But that's our worst case based on your expertise. If the state says, you know what, we're not gonna expand your reimbursables, this is your worst case, and anything we do better is just a bonus on top of it.
Correct.
Yes.
All right. When we said if we don't get funding, I know we're including the grant, but are we including our educational? You said if we don't get funding, obviously, you know, if we
The
lose,
Well,
if
yeah.
we lose, you know, $4 million
In the resolution.
in the resolution.
In the
Oh,
resolution, we're not
We can't
mixing.
fix it. But I think the resolution's worded in a way that you could, correct?
Well, as a board, we could just come back and vote off the table
Yes.
for the public meeting.
Yes.
Correct.
Regardless if the selectmen or the selectmen say they want to pull it and we say we want it, both boards have to be in complete agreement, correct?
I don't think so. Both boards?
Well, what'll happen is this, by the way, I did check this out, that was one of the questions that was asked at the last meeting. And, you know, I checked out about 12 different definitions of rescind, and I also checked out Robert's rules regarding that. And what happens is, there's gonna be a point of no return, and the point of no return is gonna be when they bang the gavel and start the town meeting.
Yeah.
So once that town meeting starts, you've gotta go through with whatever it's gonna be.
Either-
Prior to that, the Board of Finance can withhold their approval, they go back and rescind any approval that they make tonight or whatever. And so can the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen can pull their recommendation off the table.
But, question, either board can do it, right? It doesn't have to be both.
No, but if one pulls it, the other.
Okay, good. No, I just want to make sure you,
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you pull it, it's dead,
Right.
or if you say let's go forward and we say we want to pull it.
it's dead, right?
All right,
Either one.
and then there was one other thing, the bond.
Yes.
So this is, I guess, more for Bob. If we're gonna take, I'm assuming the worst case scenario was, let's just say 40 million, even though I know it's a little bit more. And at the end of the project, we realize we only need 38. How does that work with our bond? Is it like a construction loan where they give you $40 million or the 65 million, however we're gonna do to start paying the bill back?
Basically, yeah, we'll start off with the bands, and then we'll work our ways into the bond. The bond probably won't happen for about 3 or 4 years from now, at least.
So we'll do short-term
Yes.
borrowing,
Like,
almost like a construction loan, as we need money.
yes,
And then once we get our reimbursement check, is when we so-called refinance.
Well, the reimbursement checks should be coming in on a monthly basis.
They come in as you file. based
No, I
on-
understand, I'm just saying, we have time to decide what the final bond amount is. I'm just doing it in terms I can.
Right.
Well, I don't know if the Board of Finance determines the bond, what type.
so no, I think, if I can paraphrase the question, I think what he's saying is, we're gonna be floating some short-term notes
Oh, yeah.
to pay through. Now, when it's all over, if all we needed was 38 million instead of 40, we wouldn't bond 40,
Oh,
we'd
no.
bond
Exactly.
48.
We're not locked in, that's all I'm trying to say.
Right.
So our construction loan is 65 million. However you wanna say it, we're gonna do short-term debt and keep adding on to that, and as reimbursements come in, pay down the short-term debt. But at the end is when we'll have the final number, and that's when we could do, we're not locked into borrowing 40 million, it's.
Correct.
because
No,
you
in
do
fact,
short-term debt.
with the short-term notes, we could be paying down some of the
The principal.
construction costs.
Yeah, the principal.
So, you know, there wouldn't be a reason to borrow 40 million. We maybe only borrow 38.
And then, my final question, I don't know if you looked at this, I'm sure that furniture and equipment replacement is part of the proposal that we're gonna replace all the furniture and equipment in the school.
Not
Is it-
everything, but.
But it would make sense to do a lot of it
Yeah,
as
yeah.
you're doing construction, and you're not gonna put in,
Vast
you know.
majority of
Yeah,
it.
the
Vast majority, that's
Right.
very
Do you,
important.
do you see potential savings in future budgets based on that?
Oh, for-
Where, that's, you see,
We don't do a lot of,
furniture and
No,
stuff.
no.
Okay.
I am looking forward to new HVAC systems and
I mean, there could be some savings, I mean, have you done
Yes.
any calculations in terms
Not
of,
yet.
even to like the four,
460.
yeah, like savings that we might foresee?
Not at this point.
Okay.
But at least those two buildings then wouldn't be so much of a worry.
And it would be future savings.
That's what I just wanted to know if we had.
The $3 million that seems to, that's mentioned that can be spent regardless of what happens. That's $3 million, like whatever happens, right?
Well, it wouldn't be, I think the way we word it, Margie, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it wouldn't be spent prior to being on the priority list or being assigned to the priority list, which is December 15th, because we wouldn't want to spend money if we didn't know that we were
Right.
going to be on the priority list. And certainly by that point, we'd know about the budget too.
At that point, we would have had a successful referendum.
Correct.
We would have
All
been
of
on
those
the
things
priority
would
list.
What date were you thinking we would
It's
know?
December 15th.
Oh,
Yes.
And in your
So-
experience, when you've gone on a priority list for a grant,
You go
you've
through.
gotten
Yes.
a gate.
Yes.
So my question, I guess, really would be, we make the priority list December 15th.
Yep.
But we really don't know until March, sometime in March, whether or not the funds are gonna be available, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Can we hold off until March with the design of the building? And how much, I mean, how much of a delay and cost escalation is gonna be created by that?
I think that's the problem. Go ahead. Do you want to answer, Joe?
How many months is that? If we were starting.
4 months.
Like 4 or 5 months, yeah.
Well, it would push back because you wouldn't be able to do any
Right, we wouldn't be able to start
Right.
anything. I
Yeah.
think you might lose a whole year.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
4%.
Here's the history of the priority list.
Why would it be
is-
a whole year?
Because by the time you mobilize and looking at the construction start times, it doesn't really work
If you've
that
lost
well.
the time when the kids aren't in school, you're gonna have to move kids, you're gonna have to, I mean, you're gonna have to put in the portable classrooms in October.
Yeah.
I mean, there's gonna be a lot of work.
The rule of thumb for construction, you never want to delay the construction process because it always costs you more money. So.
No, I understand that,
Yeah.
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 So,
within the contingency, like for materials, like, you know, because we all know it's escalating right now, basically. But, you know, down-
Escalation-
I learned that the hard way.
Well, escalation, you're right, materials would be a little bit more, but overall, it's about 4%.
So you have a contingency where.
Yeah, I have escalation in there. And then there's a contingency based on, because these are conceptual drawings. Okay, and that money will move up into the construction cost as we move forward, if it moves forward, from SD, from conceptual to SD to, construction documents. And that contingency will go to zero because that money will move up into the construction. Always has, always will.
Last question, under the state grant, it has to be prevailing wage, I'm
Yes.
assuming?
Yes.
So you're gonna use all union shops and everything.
Well, no, it doesn't
No,
have to be
not
union.
union.
Just prevailing
Prevailing
wage,
wage.
they pay whatever.
Right, typical Connecticut projects are open shop, so you have union and non-union
But they have to pay
trades.
that,
Yeah.
the wage.
Yes, yes, prevailing wage, and they have to submit that on a monthly basis.
Certified payroll.
Has to be approved.
I'd like to go back to the question about the priority list. So the way the priority list has worked in the past is if the project got through the DAS department, and it got on the priority list, it got covered. The difference now is more in the upfront, the vetting being done by DAS. Because DAS is really vetting, if you get on that priority list, not every project anymore is getting on the priority list. And the idea is, they're only gonna put on that priority list what they know the legislature has bonding for to cover. So the weeding out is happening that you don't get on the priority list. So our chances of getting on the priority list and then not getting the grant are slim. But the big deal is getting on that priority list. I mean, there's no 100% guarantee, but there's a very high sense of it working that way.
And did they agree with your changes to Rockwell now?
I think they liked it. I had a preliminary conversation on Friday with
And
Michelle.
I scanned and emailed it up to her.
Correct, and I saw your email today.
Yeah, her email today said, don't do any more work, I think we should talk on Thursday.
Yeah, I think we're in good shots, really good shape, and we're going back on Thursday, so. Well, I will definitely give you an update.
All right, so you have more?
I do. So actually, Bob is going to probably talk more, and Terry will talk more about this, but this is a little high because I think we're going back and forth with the numbers with regard, and you asked for a 25, 20, 30, correct?
Yes.
Impact. So you're going to note that it says 43,000 and it's 42, so it's a little bit of a high estimate. But I will let Bob and Terry talk about this.
Well, we were getting revised cost estimates from ONG, and so I had done a rough calculation and came up with 43. I thought our
43.2.
43.2. So Bob had Barry Bernabe run it at 43.2. But then it did come in actually about $1 million less. But we had also run it at 45.7. And it only changes by.
If you look at it, it's not a material change
It's not
over.
gonna be materially different. The $1 million change isn't gonna really change your grant stuff.
Does revenue, the mill rate in 2025, the mill rate is when it starts going up, does the revenue decay?
No, down.
Down.
So that means we're going down.
Right. You go up until 2025.
Right. Sounds perfect. And it comes under 1 mil total?
I think when Bob and I ran numbers last week, just as a very rough estimate, we came out with about
1.25. Wasn't it 1.25?
1.25. The whole project was the equivalent of about 1.25 mils. And the cost to the average household in today, if you were calculating it all today, was about a $270 increase.
To today, assuming no changes at all
So
from
it was
today's
like
numbers.
$269 and change to the average Bethel house.
But again, not
For
in
the
one
total.
particular year, but in each one of those years, it's cumulative as you
Well,
get to that point.
overall, that would be
Yeah.
the hit, but it's built into the tax base now for multiple years.
From year to year to year.
Yeah. But the delta, like if you look at our operating budget, the amount that it's gonna go up was about that, if you dumped it
In
all
25.
it'd be, yeah.
So, and again, I'm just adding these numbers up. You guys figure that on 25 years, or do you look at the 20 years? No.
We're looking at the two of them, 20, 25, and 30 is just, I mean, you're paying way too much interest, I think, on that. It doesn't
No,
make
I
sense.
just looked at, I had an opens up like 1 and 1.14.
Could be,
If you add up
yeah.
all those black numbers, so that's how
We
we
were looking
figure
at
out.
the 25,
That's 25.
and it was about one and a quarter.
Yeah.
I would just caution us to not focus necessarily on the mill rate, because I think it's a little bit misleading. I think what you want to focus on is what the absolute dollar change is.
This is on like the mill rate for.
We want to know a lot of the factors that go into it. I think what we really want to focus on is what the dollars are, and it's defined here as debt service, so it's both principal and interest. I think that's really what we want to focus on, because that's the dollars that will be going into the budget that's going to have to be covered by taxpayers.
Correct.
The mill rate, it was all static, is a shorthand reference for the south side.
It still gives you an idea for every $1,000 of assessed value. So I mean, if someone has $500,000 of assessed value for mills, if this is gonna cost $1 mil, I mean, you're saying that's no matter what, an increase of.
That assumes the static grant.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
But it also would assume a static budget, which we never get either. So, I mean, I'm just saying it's pretty safe. I think we need to be safe and be realistic with people saying, just to me, that's how I wrap my head around things. 1 mil, I know what I'm paying. If it's 2 mils, you know, I just know where I'm at. And I understand the mill rate can change and go down, but it doesn't change 1 mil equals $1 per $1,000 of assessed value.
I guess that's certainly one way to look at it. It helps people frame it. That's a good way to look at it. I think when we're talking dollars and cents as a percentage of what the budget is, we probably want to look more at column K necessarily than we do on. I mean, it's still a moving target. We have to figure out where these numbers come out. I think we as a board will want to know what is going to be the addition to the total budget as a percentage of increase.
How can we figure that out?
Just have to kind of extrapolate these numbers from the
Well, you're the best extrapolator. You're an extrapolator by
This is actually, I think to Bob's point too, there's a lot of specifics that are gonna have to be worked out as to what the actual terms are in the bonds.
I mean,
And we're not gonna.
interest rate,
Interest rate.
right now it's built in at 3%. What happened, you know, if we wind up back in the early 80s where it goes to 18%?
We got a relatively flat yield curve now, so
Right.
who knows what that means as far as short-term and long-term. But I think it's gonna be a matter of taking some funds maybe out of capital, doing something for the short-term. Again, I think it's a complicated consideration. It's not just focused on.
I understand for the average taxpayer, they're gonna want to know what does it do in terms of assess value. You know, that's how most people, you know, Mr. Holmes talks about the mill rate and how an increase in the mill affects his house. We can look at it any way we want, but again, I'm not being disrespectful. I'm just saying for me, to know over the course of 5 years, it's gonna move the mill rate, let's say 1.25. It could be better. It could be worse depending on our interest rate, but it gives me a baseline to know that, hey, this is the reality. And if you have $800,000 worth of assessed property in the town of Bethel, expect to pay $800 more a year in taxes or $1,000 more in taxes. That's all.
I think we are going to have to come up with some kind of a way to explain this in advance to the voters, whether it be at the town meeting or at the public hearing. And there's gonna be a lot of questions, so we do have to come up with a way to explain that so that everyone has an understanding of what they're voting on.
And we're assuming that this would be starting in 2017. They're not really, in actuality, this would be pushed out until we actually finance this amount. So in 2017, it may still be going down, but we're not taking on this actual note, we're doing short-term borrowing, right, Bob?
Yeah,
So
and
this part
if,
wouldn't take effect until you did your 20-year borrowing, correct?
if you look at column L, I mean, right now we have debt service at $4 million because I reset the short-term notes to bring it in at $4 million a year. He's got 3.6, 3.7, 3.8. I mean, we're gonna be paying down 200, 300,000 each one of those years, addition to what's on here. So that's gonna change the calculations as well.
For the better for us?
To the better, yeah.
I have a question. I was thinking that I think the thing that would make me much more comfortable is if we could consider the possibility of having 2 public hearings. And that's because if we set everything up, if we have 2 public hearings, it gives people, people won't feel so pressured. This is just my thought. We wound up having to, with other projects. It's just a thought. I think it might, whether you want to call it an information session for people, because a lot of people didn't get to attend the one that we did.
We've had many.
I know.
Are you suggesting, I mean,
different when.
you're not saying
when
too
it's on the
formal.
table.
You're not saying too, I mean, we have to have a formal public
A
hearing.
formal public hearing.
But
and
you would
another
also
public
like,
hearing.
Oh,
You would also like another information
Maybe the
night?
information.
We'd
Right.
be
Not a
happy,
problem.
we're happy to do
Prior
that.
to the public.
All right, so you would like to have an informational meeting daytime and nighttime, or?
I don't know, just, and if you say informational meeting, it doesn't make it sound as critical, so, a crisis intervention, no. An information session, I don't know, a public hearing sounds real, can you call it a public hearing? I think you could.
Is that possible?
Marty, I
You can have
think if it's a public
if
hearing,
you want.
if it's a public hearing, I think you have to notice it in the paper.
Yeah.
Well, you have to notice it,
But we'd be happy to have additional
Yeah.
information.
I just think that.
Either way, that can be done.
Yeah,
I just think that.
that's not a problem.
So, here's a question. In the
Resolution.
resolution,
Which you have, right?
and on the ballot, it is just for the funding. You determine, or we determine whether we bond it for 2020.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
Okay, that is our decision.
You want to know, Marty?
No,
That's the bond committee.
that's the bonding.
Yeah. Okay, but I mean, that doesn't go to the voters at all.
No.
Okay, all right, good.
And what you see in front of you, that proposed resolution, that thing, it's only gonna be like a paragraph that ends up in front of the voters. What's gonna happen, because I thought about it, because it is complicated, what I thought about doing was get that blown up and have it all the different spots so they can read it before they go in case they wanna have some specificity that's involved. Because it's they're limited what you can put on the ballot.
Right.
Yeah, the resolution, yeah.
All right, so the next thing that we need to do,
I don't know what the rest of them are.
yes, go ahead.
Under what circumstances would either the Board of Selectmen or the Board of Finance rescind? I mean, what would catalyze that sort of meeting?
If they don't get on the priority list.
Okay.
Well, no, you won't know that.
No.
Or,
If there's no
You won't know the priority list
Yeah,
at that point.
not before the referendum. I think before the referendum, it's the state budget.
But the resolution that Marty has crafted has the minimum amounts, that the numbers pertaining to the budget you were given tonight as the minimum commitment from the state. So even after this is passed, right, if the state said, we're not gonna fund any projects, you could decide not to go.
Correct.
Even after the referendum,
Even
correct?
after the referendum.
So the referendum has an escape valve in it.
Yes.
If
Resolution.
I thought you were.
If the state doesn't
Right.
come through with the minimum amount of funding as we calculated.
all right, so that's the second way we can get it.
Can I ask, and I don't know which way until we make the motion for discussion, or whether we talk about it now. Personally, well, when I make the motion, I'll still discuss it.
To put on the,
For me, I think if we vote this forward tonight, two things should happen. One, we need to educate the public on what we did tonight and assure them that if the money's not there or the state reduces funding to an unsatisfactory level to the boards, we can put a stop to this project. Because I know the knee-jerk reaction from a lot of people are gonna be like, what are you guys doing? So I think it's important that we get ahead of it, whether it's on the town website, the school educates people, however we wanna do it, get the correct information out to the voters immediately. That, look, this is important, we're not saying anything until we know where the chips fall. The other thing I would suggest, and we could always cancel it, is to schedule a special meeting before
The county.
our town meeting. Get that on the schedule now so we all know what the date is. And maybe make it a joint meeting if we could, I don't know, or with us coming, make it a joint meeting so we can look at this before the town meeting and we know where we are to be able to say, yeah, we feel comfortable with this. You know, let's move forward, or to say, wait a minute, we need to pull this back. Things didn't turn out the way we thought it was gonna.
Well, once we set the town meeting, we have a town meeting. Once we set the dates, you know,
Well, no, what I'm saying is if we schedule a special meeting
before
before
the
that,
town meeting.
we can cancel everything, just
Yeah.
withdraw our proposal and everything is dead. That way, I just want people to know that both the school, the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance, we've taken the necessary safeguards to put brakes on something if we have to. Let's, on Thursday, it would be great if we all woke up and they had a budget and there's no cuts. Everyone's just gonna trudge along, happy as can be, and, high five each other. But we just don't know. And everyone's asking about potential. No one knows until we see the numbers. It's just nice to educate people because there's a lot of pro-school people. And look, I know you guys need this building, but I just know the comments I get saying, hey, we're talking about losing 8 million. We need to educate people that, look, this is important for the process. But if the money's not there, because we don't want the opinion going against right from the beginning, saying, what are they doing? They're just
Yeah,
wasting our money, which we're not. We're being prudent, we're being responsible.
yeah, it's really,
So whoever could do it, whether it comes on the town website.
Yeah, we can do
or,
that.
The superintendent, you guys can reach out, just so everyone knows what's going
I
on.
can draft an email to all my parents.
Yeah.
That's
Thank
fine.
well, do we need to notify the entire town?
Well, I think
Yeah,
if Matt
I mean,
does it on the town side,
Okay.
we could actually do it together, Matt.
Yeah.
We could pen a letter together.
I
Yeah,
think,
maybe even do a mailing, just so everyone knows what,
I think we
what
should
happened.
handle it the same way we handle
Yeah, it's not essential stuff.
the notice for the referendum, that it should go to everybody, maybe a quick little,
And we could.
We do that anyway,
Yeah,
referendum notice.
no, I'm saying before that, like what we decided.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I'm just saying, it's just everyone will get the same message, because unless you cross something together, there's gonna be different.
no, I think we could do it together.
Okay.
so the next
Yeah.
thing that we need to do
We can't do
is
tomorrow,
to,
but we could, next couple days.
is to go over the timeline, correct?
Yes,
In part of the am I correct, Marty?
yes.
What do we need to do?
No offense to this board, you don't have, you can talk about it,
That's what I mean.
but that's fine.
Right. And the timeline would be,
9:25 public hearing, and this was set by,
What day
Town
of the
hall.
week is 9/20? Oh, that's a Monday.
Yes.
Yeah, it's my
Yes.
son's birthday, I know. so-
9:25 public hearing.
Public hearing.
We
10,
usually have them on the
10:10 town meeting. And this is not determined, it's determined at the town meeting, but we had a target referendum date of 10/17. But that is not decided until at the town meeting, correct?
So when would we be able to have a special meeting prior to that? Would we look to like the Thursday prior?
prior to the town meeting.
Mhm.
I mean,
need 24 hours.
I'm sorry.
You need 24 hours notice first.
Right, so
Right.
would we do
Anytime.
Thursday, would we do Thursday, would we do Wednesday, would we schedule a special meeting?
It's Tuesday,
Don't you
so.
think we should do it before the public hearing?
That's what I'm saying. The public hearing's on the
No,
25th,
I thought you
right?
said before the town meeting.
All right, wait a minute, let them speak.
My suggestion would be do it before the town meeting, because if you do it before the public meeting, they have up until October 1st. So if you do it like October 5th,
Right, but we don't,
you'd be in better shape. You can do it up till the town meeting.
I don't think it's fair going to a public meeting though,
A public hearing.
a public hearing with all this uncertainty. I mean,
That's
look,
what I was
if we don't have a budget by the 25th, you know,
But a lot can
Nothing's
happen
gonna
in
happen.
Hartford in 5 days, Brian.
I think that's,
I
The
think
clock
that,
has been ticking.
I think that what we need to do is set these dates, and then we're gonna have to be very flexible, because it's possible that there will not be a budget until October 1st.
Correct.
Okay, and then we cancel everything, and then we gotta go back and redo it. However, to their point, if we have a public hearing, we will say, we are giving you the information that we have at this moment. And we still, if we meet between October 1st and before October 10th, we can cancel the town meeting, and all we've done is had a public hearing and the public informational sessions, which are very necessary anyway, no matter what.
But we can't make decisions at an information session, so if you have the public
The public, yeah, it's just hearing the public.
Correct.
Right, but I'm a little confused.
Personally, again, I'm just speaking from experience, my own personal experiences, perception is reality.
Yeah.
How do you think a public meeting's gonna go if there's
Public
no
hearing.
public hearing? I don't,
I know that.
whatever, you know what I'm saying? How do you think that's gonna go if we don't have a state budget and we still don't know what the money is? How do you really think that's gonna go? How would that meeting look when people are saying we have all this uncertainty and we're having a public hearing to approve potentially 60-something million, which we know we're gonna get reimbursed for? I just don't think that meeting would go very well. And I think it would be irresponsible on both of us, both boards, to do that. I think we need to make the decision before we have a public hearing. That's my feeling.
Well, part of the clue comes on the 14th.
Yeah.
days from now.
That's what I was gonna say. Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, we'll be
All
much
right,
better.
yes, go ahead.
Exactly.
No, are you done?
Yeah, listen, whatever you want to say.
If I can make a suggestion on that, you bring up a good point about the public hearing, but to Terry's point and to Dr. Carver's point, things change day to day. I would look at the public hearing as an opportunity to educate the public and tell them what we're doing and say, yes, there is uncertainty and we have an escape valve. I mean, you literally could schedule your meeting for 6 o'clock on the day of the town meeting and pull the plug right then. If you get all the way to the afternoon of the 10th and nobody's voted in Hartford, you know, like Marty said, up until the point that you call the town meeting to order, you have full authority to pull the plug on the thing. But I would look at the public hearing as an opportunity to educate the public and tell them, you know, this is what we think we're going to do. There is uncertainty. If it gets that bad, we have a plan in place to not do this.
But that's not a public hearing, that's an information session. A public hearing is where you hear input from the public.
You can still make that announcement.
That would be fine.
But I know what Brian's asking, and I agree with him, that you want the information to come before the public hearing.
Whether we could push the public hearing back a few days just to give us that.
No, you can't. You've got to have that certain number of days between the hearing and the town meeting.
In the November election.
Right.
We were asking that you go forward, because that's the only way to give this project every chance.
These are the dates that you have to go forward with.
Well, come on, they just said you need 7 days after a public hearing,
It
correct?
can't be less than.
Less than 7 days.
It can't be less than.
So, after the public hearing, according to my calculations, we have 15 days before we're calling the town meeting. So if we only need 7 days from a public hearing to a town meeting, why couldn't we just push the public
We do
hearing?
it on October 2nd.
There has to be notification done.
Yeah, you
It's
mean,
7 days, if it's 7 days, it's 7 days, right?
He's saying maybe October 3rd?
No, second, or whatever
Yeah,
day
October
works,
2nd or
because
3rd.
then, you know, we're gonna know,
Yes, we
right,
will.
we'll know right off the bat, we're still within our time frame to get our town meeting.
Right.
Publish it far in advance.
How far in advance? 7 days, right?
Well, yeah, but it takes, with the news times now.
You have
I'm
to
not talking about the penny sale, I'm talking about the news times.
Oh, ouch.
What happens is, you know, it takes more than a day or two to put something in the paper. You've got to do it 5 or 6 days.
We usually ask,
Especially if it's a large.
Brian.
All right, listen up, please.
we usually ask for 5 days. We've pushed this down to 3 days. You have to give us some time to be able to gather the information, get it to the News Times, and get the notification set up. These dates that we've given you have been the same dates that we gave out at the last meeting. They've been gone over several times.
But at the last meeting, we said we were gonna make the decision prior to the public hearing.
No.
No, we didn't.
Yeah, that's. You didn't, Bruce? I seem to recall we were talking about the public hearing, okay?
The
I've got
discussion was
No.
that you could have a meeting between the public hearing
Yeah.
and the town meeting.
Brian, what I'm saying is that the dates that were set on the referendum date that was given, and the referendum date can't be any other time.
I understand the
So,
referendum.
okay, well,
I'm fine
but
with
then everything else has to be kind of backed up from that.
we did leave time in between the town meeting and the public hearing so they could have another meeting though, right?
Yeah, they can have another meeting.
Right.
All right, so what we need to do is we need to know, can we put the public hearings into October? Is that possible?
think you're gonna put a lot of pressure on trying to get the town meeting done and then the referendum done.
Well, the town meeting and the referendum dates would stand. What he's saying is put the public hearing is now how many days before?
Bruce, that goes back to the notification.
Bruce, we can't guarantee that we can get the notification in if you push the public hearing back into October. It's too tight.
We really have set.
Oh, I see what you, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
That's
It's just
right.
getting into the paper.
And
There's a process, and
Yeah.
From
And
the
we-
public hearing to the town meeting, correct?
yeah.
Yeah, the paper doesn't guarantee anything. Okay.
Well,
I'm sorry if it upset
No,
y'all. I
no,
mean,
no,
this
no.
is just the process that,
all right, Bill, do you have any comments? Gary? So our next business is to go through with it, just accept the calendar.
Well, you have to vote to approve the amount that Terry handed out.
42 million.
And you have to add something to the motion, which is subject to approval by the Board of Selectmen, because the number that we recommended to you is a different number than what is in front of you tonight. But we'll take care of that next week.
So we'll vote first on the 42,240,000.
No, the full amount.
Can I just say a couple of things?
Yes.
This is still based pretty much on the last resolution that was submitted. The difference is, what's changed is not only the numbers, because I got those from Terry,
Right, I see.
but also what's changed is there was a discussion, if you remember, at the very end of the last Board of Finance meeting, that if you asked the question, what happens if the state only gives you one building? And I think the issue is we cannot do Rockwell School all by itself. That can't be done. So the only thing that could possibly happen is, it's possible if they just granted for Johnson School, could we do that? And that's why that's been changed so much. In that, what's in there, it says that if we don't get the full amount for both schools, what's happened is there's a procedure that we would use in order to do Johnson if they approve Johnson. So that's the biggest change in there.
Okay, because the total is 65,831,143, and then it breaks it down to the new figure for Rockwell. The 41 million for Johnson was the same,
Yes.
correct? Okay.
Before you make a motion, I have one, I'm a little concerned, one more concerned about the bailout option. What if we get some budget, some kind of holdback? And that's why I asked what would precipitate a meeting to rescind, because there's varying degrees of what we might get. So it's all or nothing, it seems. But you know what I'm saying? If we get the 8 million, let's say we get 4 million. But they're only like 8 million, we get 4 million. They come to a budget, but the budget is not exactly what we think is a good.
But she's saying instead of an $8 million cut, we get a $4 million cut. Is that enough to pull the
What's
plug?
gonna make us know that we need to have a meeting?
Well, I think any type of cut by the state.
Okay,
That's
qualifier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just think, well, us, but who's us?
Well, I don't.
Board of Finance.
Yes, no, I don't.
That's what the rescission, that's what the original
I'm
rescission.
not being clear, I'm not being clear. I mean, so you're saying that if we get any cuts, that.
I think we would have to come back and have a conversation. Correct.
And then it would be up to us.
I know, but
All
she
right,
says our houses.
All right, let's go.
Yeah, no.
All right, so,
My understanding is that no matter what the budgets are, if it's anything, even if it's fully funded for 8 million, we could come back on any time up to 10:10 as a Board of Finance and overflow.
Who would decide that there would be a meeting for the Board of Finance?
No,
Okay.
that's what I was trying to say.
That's what
though.
I'm trying to
What
say.
what I'm saying is, if we vote and this passes, we can make a motion to have a special meeting on, is the 25th of Monday, am I correct, or is it Tuesday?
It is Monday.
All right, so we can make a recommendation to have a meeting on that Thursday before the public hearing, because we may have a state budget and we'll know what the numbers are. So the meeting's set, and we're
I
all
want
in
that to all
agreement.
happen now.
Right, and we're all in agreement, that this is the day we're meeting, so we can all get together, we have plenty of time to plan it.
Right.
And that way, if we have a state budget and we lost $500,000, whatever we lost, the meeting's set, we can talk about it. And if there's no change in the budget, we can always cancel the meeting, so there's nothing to talk about, we still don't have a state budget.
I think you have to have a contingency date set up to have.
All right, Bill?
Well, I would suggest we have it at some point after 10:00. And we will have
After the
a
public
lot
hearing.
of factual information at that point.
Why would you have it after 10:01?
Because the state must make a decision.
Say that it's on the 15th? Wouldn't you just rather have the meeting set?
Yeah, but
No,
might
if they
defer
said
to that.
September 15th. If we lose the $7 million, why would you even want to have a public hearing? That's my point. My point is, it's not that big a deal, this special, for us to schedule a
I see
special
what you're saying,
meeting
yeah.
on the Thursday before the public hearing. If the state has a budget in place, we can make informed decisions. If there's no budget in place, we just cancel the meeting.
All right, we can,
If you want to go that way.
I'm just saying, it gets us all together.
All right, this is what we could do. We could schedule a meeting prior to the 25th and put it on the calendar as an informational meeting or an update meeting for us. If nothing has changed, then we cancel that meeting and we proceed to the public hearing. And then we have another chance to schedule a meeting between public hearing and the town meeting.
Right, we should schedule those 2 dates now. Because otherwise, if we cancel the first meeting, we won't be, we should get 2 dates now.
All right, so
The Thursday before the 25th is the 21st. So
That's fine.
September 21st, put that on the calendar.
It's Rosh Hashanah. I just don't know anybody. This isn't a.
No, I
Okay, so then do you want to do the 20th?
All right, so that would
Did you,
not be, would
Bruce?
everybody be in on that Friday? We've had Friday meeting.
Well, would the 20th
I'm on a
work?
business trip that week.
Would the 20th
That's a
work?
Wednesday night?
The 20th of, oh.
Would September 20th work instead of the
That's
21st?
like a week from
That
tomorrow.
would be fine with me.
Yeah, it is.
All right, we can schedule it, and if we don't have any information,
Okay.
okay, so we'll schedule it.
They're either gonna make a decision day after tomorrow or by October
All
1st.
right.
You know,
So we'll
if I
schedule
could-
it for the yes, go ahead.
Just as a reminder, you have the option to schedule any special meeting on 24 hours' notice whenever you need to.
Right.
I mean, you can set this up for convenience now, or you can
Yeah.
look and see what's happening and decide later.
I would like to have people at least be able to have some kind of a vision or a plan of their next month. I know I like to.
Okay, so the 20th?
Correct?
Could we have the meeting before the public hearing?
Yeah, you can do
That's-
There
that.
will be a meeting.
That's the 25th.
Yeah.
No, what I'm saying is, can we have a meeting, there's a public hearing on the 25th. Can we have a meeting before the public hearing, and if things are bad, you just come out of the public hearing?
Isn't that 9:20?
9:20 before the public.
You mean on the 25th
Thank you.
before,
Bob is not available, he's not available, you know, it's like.
So you
why
mean
have a
like
meeting
5
if two
o'clock?
of the members aren't available?
5, what
That's
time's
I'm
it,
saying, it's
6
having a
o'clock?
meeting.
Yeah.
I'm cool with that.
Have it just before. What time's the public
6
hearing?
o'clock, it's at 7, 6 o'clock?
I would say 6:30, we would know at that point. I don't care, it's fine with me.
All right, so you want to schedule this meeting 9:25 at 6:30,
Right.
okay?
So it's only gonna take you half an hour.
Yeah, why don't we say 6?
6 p.m. 6 p.m. special meeting.
Can I ask, will the public hearing be at the schools, the high school and the middle school?
Could be.
We want it wherever the,
Yeah, we probably should schedule it at school
wherever
for space.
the public hearing is,
I'll see if maybe I
our
can get
meeting
two or
will
three
be
or
in
something
the
for
same
us.
building at 6 o'clock if needed, okay?
I don't know if you can do that.
We're scheduling it.
Well, okay.
Town meetings. Yeah, they can do that.
And do you want to schedule another one
It's supposed to
between
be
the
in the
public
town
hearing
hall, isn't it,
and the
Rena?
town meeting? What date? What's another date between 9:25 and 10:10?
Right?
You're right.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so what
Bruce,
about?
you can't do that. The meeting has to be in this building.
Remember the charter change?
Oh, gee. All right,
Yep.
we'll be here. And then we'll
Okay,
just
that's,
scoot out.
that's
Okay.
fine, okay. So we definitely need to do it at 6.
Okay. And between the public hearing, the 25th, and a town meeting on the 10th, what is it?
We can do it the same way, couldn't we?
You don't want people showing up to a town meeting, it's not gonna happen.
We're gonna need at least a few days. Somewhere between, let us do it between October 1st and October 2nd.
What about, could you do it at 6 o'clock on October, okay, so either the 2nd or the 3rd, could you do it?
The 3rd is what?
It's a Tuesday. It's Board of Selectmen, but we could do it at 6.
It's okay with me.
Okay?
This is
10,
on what
10 to?
6 p.m.
10 to, it's
10 It's 10:03.
I'm sorry, 10:03.
6 p.m.
We'll just line up.
All right, so let's go over this again on September 25th, 6 p.m. here. Public hearing is September 25th, wherever at 7 p.m. 10:03, 6 p.m. here. 10:10 town meeting. Our regular meeting is 10:12. This seems like a budget season. And then,
Bruce,
It is kind of.
pardon me?
our regular meeting will be on the 10th.
Oh, it's on the 10th.
Yeah, that's the
On the
Tuesday.
same night as the town meeting?
Mm-hmm.
And they have to move that.
Can we do our regular meeting on that Tuesday?
We could probably do that,
The week
just
before.
include it in the special, I mean, it would be a special meeting, but we could do that.
Okay. So that would be the
It,
regular.
it would, I'm sorry, it's the 3rd, it's not the 2nd,
Yeah.
it's
Yes,
10:03.
sir.
We can cancel our 10:10 meeting and do 10:30.
The regular meeting, yes.
All right, so we'll do it that way. Okay, then 10:17. Okay, so we got the dates.
All right.
Now we have to go over this.
And then you think the referendum will be the 17th? If
Yes.
everything goes
If
through?
needed.
Yes.
All right, so the next thing is to go over, Marty, and approve this, correct?
Yes, subject to, it needs to be qualified though that subject to the Board of Selectmen changing their recommendation to the amount of 16, whatever million.
Okay. All right, can I have a recommendation on this? Can I have a motion to accept this resolution for funding of school projects subject to the changes from the Board of Selectmen?
The recommendation of the Board of Selectmen is 65,831,000.
Could I have a motion?
144.
Did they change it? And can I have a motion for that?
So we have to get the notice for the first public hearing on the 25th and at the end of this week. Yeah.
Does everybody understand what we're?
I just want to read it. But can you give us a synopsis of this wonderful document, please, so we know what we're looking at?
Well, most of what you see in here regarding, where it talks about the total cost for Rockwell School and Johnson is only applicable to a few things, it's really for information. So when people go in to vote, they're gonna be voting on the 65,831,143. Right? And what's gonna happen is, if you go down to number 3, it says the appropriation may be spent, borrowings made. Number 1, there has to be approval of town referendum. Following the approval of town referendum, I says that you can spend and bond or borrow $3 million. All right. Once the Commissioner of Administrative Services preliminary approval of state school grant for the project's amount of not less than 34% of the 65,831,143. So what's going to happen at that point is basically it gets on the priority list.
That's preliminary approval.
That's right. That's right. It's on the priority list. what's gonna happen is you're gonna allow the architects at that point to move forward with the project, start doing work on the project. All right, and then you're gonna see that's BI, and then you're gonna see BII. And the same thing, $3 million. If what happens is the state only grants the project for Ralph M.T. Johnson School, and it's put on the priority list, and what's gonna happen is, then you're only gonna do that too. The same $3 million will be used in order to set up for the architect to go forward with all the documentation.
And that's an up to, not to exceed number. It's
Right,
not-
yes, up to.
How does it appear on the ballot?
That's not gonna be on the ballot.
So what about
The
just?
ballot basically is gonna say is to approve the 65 million plus for the projects of the school. That's what I was saying, what we're gonna do is, well, first thing is, you've already discussed about trying to get this out there in place. But my idea was, because it is a little complicated, to blow this thing up and have it at all the polling places ahead of time. So people, sometimes you go out and you look at the ballot before you go in and vote. That's what I plan on having done at the time. So they'll be aware of that.
And again, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So if one school gets approved, we have.
Only Johnson. If
So-
Rocco gets approved,
Right.
it's not.
So if Johnson gets approved, we do Johnson.
Correct.
And the amount of the bond reduces just to do Johnson.
That's correct. That's right.
No, even if they've approved the 65 million.
That's right.
Right.
Well, why would you spend 65 million?
I
on
don't,
those?
I
No,
am
I know. No, you're
believe
right.
me, I am the last person who's
I
had
mean,
spending
who are you
65
talking
million in this
to?
room.
Talking to.
I'm only spending 650.
And what's gonna happen is, they're not gonna be authorized to go forward and spend any other monies on the project, actually get into the construction, unless the state legislature approves it.
So it's Johnson, we can do by itself,
Correct.
or we'll do both.
Correct. That's correct.
Yeah.
All right, now could I have a motion on this resolution?
Motion to accept the tribute.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, and I think our discussion has already occurred. Do I have any other comments?
Just a question, this is subject to the Board of Selectmen making the recommendation for the amount of 65 plus million.
This is all subject to the recommendation of the Board of Selectmen, making that adjustment to 65 million.
We'll have to make
All right?
sure we have that on the agenda.
Yeah.
631,000 and 43.
Right, 140.
So we're voting on something that hasn't been
Correct.
approved by.
And the main reason is that you're gonna run out of time if you don't get it done.
They approved the hiring.
We-
Oh,
yeah.
no, I know that it
So I
will
don't think they're
exist.
So they'll vote on it, they'll vote on it.
Yeah, along with they'll officially vote on all the dates too.
Right,
So we're reversing it, we're reversing it for this,
Basically.
we're basically putting it to the. Okay.
All right, so we have the motion, and we have a second, and we've had the discussion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Is there anything else, Bob, or Matt, or
Nope.
Marty, that we have to go over?
Nope. You're
All right,
good.
and I'm gonna ask that, Dion send us out a recap of that calendar. Then I'm gonna ask Dr. Carver and Terry and our chairman of the Board of Education, who is going to do the task of explaining this in detail to the people that are going to have these questions
At the public hearing or just in general?
at the informational sessions or the public hearing.
Well, I've been doing it with folks. So, I mean, I have no problem doing that.
Well, again, we discussed that maybe you'll send out an email.
Yeah, yeah.
and Dan.
And maybe Matt can do something with the town.
Well, they are gonna collaborate on one common communication.
I understand, I'm just saying, it should get out there before it gets out that it got approved and everyone is
Yeah.
gonna go.
We want to have a thread
I want
that's
people to know that there's an escape valve.
we wanna have a thread that simplifies all of
Yeah.
this.
I can draft something if you want,
Sure,
and I'll email it over to you.
sure.
I just, believe me, I'm not gonna be putting this out tomorrow, just
No.
so you
Oh, no,
know.
it's gonna take some.
Because I have a busy day
Yeah,
tomorrow,
put it
so
on.
it
Well,
probably
it-
won't go out till Thursday.
And we'll have Marty look at it too.
Yeah, okay.
Alright, could I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much.
Wow.
You can understand, we're in a.
I'm sorry, I
Right?
chimed in.
This is what happened.